I think you made a point about the failure to plan for operations and maintenance when after that ribbon is being after the mayor cut the ribbon, there is no plan which is being put in place to plan for now for maintenance and operation. So and last week I think in our discussion, one of our colleagues made a contribution and he said, in fact, the failure to manage these assets hinges on lack of us or being able to keep a proper asset register. In other words, we don't know, for instance, what is there, how much it's worth, how long it's going to be there. So in other words, we are not able to plan properly because we are not even able, we don't have a proper asset register. If you go to any municipality and you ask them, like, what assets do you have, how much they worth, where they are, they won't be able to tell you that question. So for you to plan properly, you need to have a proper asset register. Would you agree with that?
Look, here's the point. And the example that I'll make, it's unrelated and it's a why question. You understand? If I say to you, jump into the cage of lions, you're unlikely to do it. But if your child falls into a cage of lions, you are likely to go jump in there without us asking you to jump in there. Because your why, it's very clear. You understand? So this question of register, I can tell you, I for my sins, I worked for Public Works many years ago. I worked for Joburg Municipality, the Joburg Property Company, and I've been around, right? And I can tell you the question of an asset register everywhere else. And then if you go across, I swear you, I believe you me, it's a question that people get to ask us as a company. We are asset management business to get participate in these tenders and whatever, all of these things. And I can tell you the one big question. You can read two documents and thanks Bonke about what you, two documents currently. One is if you read any Auditor General's report, 90% of the failure to comply is with the asset register or the asset management part of the register. So the financial non-compliance of majority of all of these, 90% of the time it's with the assets. How they manage the assets, how they account for the assets.
Sorry. In your opinion, why do you think is that? Like why we like?
Because
what's the reason?
Which is the reason why I'm doing the study that I'm doing is exactly for that. And it's this analogy of a lion is that I will only do something if I know why it exists in my life. So majority of this municipality inherited the assets, but they don't know what the assets. So the question that I'm trying to answer is do you know how and why the asset? How does the asset contribute to your ability to deliver services? Do you know? If you don't, you have no business maintaining it. And Bonke is right. So if I build a power station, but I'm not very clear what does that power station contribute? So part of the challenge of this professionalization is not only just purely a skills problem. It's a mandate problem. So you get to a municipality, any municipality or a government department. If a government department wants officers, what comes into their mind is, I need to look at a building that I like and I'll procure that building. If a government department wants to build a water reservoir, I need to go find a piece of land where there's sufficient water that flows that I can block and then we build a wall. You understand? But you may find that if you are able to follow what, particularly GIAMA is one piece of legislation that I was fortunate enough to participate in it, but it's got certain elements that are very important because GIAMA says before you ask for an asset, you are very far from a ribbon. You must at least determine what is the contribution of that asset to first your business, to society, to the community. What is the reason why that asset should exist in the first place? Why must it exist? If you are able to define that, the second thing that GIAMA tells you, there's actually literally chapter 2 of GIAMA, I think, is chapter 2. It outlines the requirements that you must meet before you even procure an asset. Those requirements, if any of the government department meets just those requirements, believe you me, half of this stuff that you are cutting ribbon about will only exist.
But doesn't that,
The requirements are very clear.
but
Yes, Tammy?
doesn't that go back to what Mlondi started by asking? Skills,
Yeah.
because if you don't have the right skills, you don't know what you're doing. You don't understand why you're building a power station to start with.
But majority of the people that are employed in responsibility of, and I'll go back to this point that Monty is right in one aspect, is misleading himself in another aspect. The misleading one, which I'm starting with, is that you're assuming that the fact that I'm qualified and have the relevant skills, I understand what I'm doing. So why am I saying that? Is we must also accept, and it's a proven fact, that asset management as a professional occupation, it's new.
Yeah.
You understand? It's fairly new.
It's a new concept.
It's a new concept, and it's also new. Worse, asset management as a professional concept in the public sector, it's, even if you look at publications, whether it's academic publications or industry publications or industry, even simple workshops about asset management in the public sector, you would believe you me, you would struggle to find one because it's still new, it's still fresh. So all of us are shooting in the dark. We are learning. We learn what we need to learn. So that we need to accept. On the other hand, where you're correct is that are we employing the right people for those? Now, if you look at asset management in government, you'll find it all over. You find it in procurement, because somebody thinks that procuring engineering services is, building engineering services is a procurement function. So some guy who studied logistics is responsible for building a dam. Of course, he's gonna mess it up. Or then in other departments, you find it somewhere in some corner somewhere where they don't know what to do with you. It's in registering filing, you know. So part of the correctness about the skill is not the lack of the capacity in terms of people. It's about where do we place it within the bigger organization? Where does it fit in the organization? And if you go through the entire government, you may find that it's sitting in different places purely because most of them have not figured out where it belongs. Now, if you can't figure out where it belongs, so if you put it in procurement, the manager in procurement, if he wants to build skills, he's not going to send people to an asset management course. He's going to send them to a procurement course. You understand? So that's part of where you are quite correct to say, organizationally, do we know where these things belongs? Because you can build skills if you place it appropriately.
Yes. But Figile, do you want to take a bite, or I move to the next question?
I would like to. And I think for me, this is a very important topic in terms of the title of public infrastructure asset management, because it influences. I think you know, some practice we see out there are tantamount to wasteful expenditure. If you reference the AG report, because of how. I like the way Mashilo prefaced it, or around what is the why. And before I get to that, I used to think, I mean, if most of us, you know, can relate to a lawnmower, I won't mention its brand, but you know, my father bought this lawnmower, and he used to insist that after every time I mowed the lawn, it's electric lawnmower, and that's how I learned how electric lawnmower works, or those small motors. I mean, that thing is simple. You just remove the top and you change the spark plug, you clean it, you turn it over, you clean the blade and all those things. Tommy, you go to Davidson now, that mower is still running because it's been serviced and maintained all this time. The first washing machine that my dad bought says, no, I'm not gonna have my wife doing this. I bought a washing machine top loader, and he said, your job is to make sure that after your mother washes all your clothes, you clean this thing, you clean the filter. That thing ran and he said, no. Now the children must replace it for the parents. But that's not a difficult thing to understand. A taxi driver knows that he needs to maintain his car, because he can see the other mate of his who doesn't maintain his kumbi, what happens to it, and he maintains. So there is a culture thing. We think that buildings don't require the same level of care and TLC in some way, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but you look at the union buildings. Sir Herbert Baker, we can all relate to it. Sir Herbert Baker designed that building, and I think it was finished in 1910. Sandstone, beautiful architecture, beautiful building. It's still standing today. It was finished in 1910, if I'm not mistaken. Before the Union of South Africa in 1912, that led to, of course, the formation of the South African Native Congress and the rest of it. I'm not going to go into, this is not a history conversation. And then you look at Parliament and how the seat of government looks, and the Supreme Court of Appeal in the city of Roses in Bloemfontein, how that building looks, and Constitution Hill, the seat of the judiciary, how that building looks. So why can't all buildings look like that? You know, why must it be the buildings that look alike are your PPP buildings, and there are many in DTI, the new Stats SA building. I mean, there are many. So there's a culture thing, was a leadership thing, and I understand the purist in Mashilo, if I may, who understand it much better and articulates it much better. But I'm thinking, but yes, there's a science to it, but it's not exactly difficult, you know.
And I'm going to support your point, and I'm going to make the point that I was making in a roundabout way. At least you've been direct. You understand? So the point about, if you don't understand the why of why something exists, you're not going to worry about it. It's because the why is it doesn't bother you. So if it doesn't bother you, you're not going to bother it. You understand? So same as the example that you're giving. You understand that if I don't make sure that the lawnmower works all the time, it means I have the inability to fix the lawn. It's the same way that after you eat, you wash the dishes, because you understand that if I don't wash the dishes, I don't have, at some point I'm going to run out of dishes in this house. I can't keep buying new dishes. It's the why. So there is
Mashilo, isn't that hinges on knowledge though? Isn't that hinges on experience and on knowledge? Like, wouldn't you say that directly hinges on that if you...
I agree with Bonke. I agree with Mashilo here. There are some things that requires knowledge, technical knowledge, but there are some things that are very basic. I can tell you that the very same people that are not maintaining a building across the street that they're responsible for, or they're not maintaining their conveyor belt, that guy, when he arrives at his office where he's sitting in his desk, if the lady that cleans the office has not cleaned, he's the first one to complain, to say, yeah, why is my desk dead? And that's where I agree with Bafikile to say that part, it's about whether you understand the contribution of that thing in your life. If you think that it has no contribution in your life, you're going to ignore it. This is, for me, the why question, to say, do our people, when they sit, because remember, I don't have to know, I've never worked in facilities management. He's much more skilled in facilities management. I've never done electricity. I've never dealt with electricity. You understand? But I know that when I get to my house, for the electricity to switch on, I need to have plugs that I must press. I need to have paid the municipality. I know that. I don't have to be an electrician to know that. So there are some things that we must accept, that you do not have to have a multiplicity of skills to know the basics, to know that if I don't take care of this thing, it won't function tomorrow. So somewhere in Limpopo, there's a tarred road somewhere. The reason why there's a tarred road is because a month before the tarred road was built, is an MEC was traveling in a rural road. He was going to visit, he was going to cut a ribbon somewhere. And it so happened that it rained. And then their car, before they could get to where they got to, collapsed, capsized. And that MEC got injured. It's a true story. You can go and look, a true story. So their car capsized. It's somewhere Amashashan. I can tell you the direct story. Their car capsized. So they got injured. Believe you me, if you go to that village now, they've got a tarred road. That's the why question.
Yeah.
And that place, they've never had a tarred road as long as it existed. Until the why question exists, where you can, there's a direct relationship to the asset. That road is an asset. Until there's that direct relationship, you have no business. Those people could have told that MEC 100 times we need a tarred road. She would have seen the reason. You understand? So you cannot divorce, and Bafikile is right, you can't divorce the benefit you derive from an asset from the ability to maintain the asset, skills aside. until the people that are responsible for the asset can draw a direct line between their benefit they derive from the asset itself. It's the same as the community go and ban a school. It's because they've developed a relationship, a direct line between the results they want to get and the asset. To say, if we ban the school, the minister is going to be here.
Okay.
You understand? Or else they wouldn't do that. So that is very important to what you're talking about, that you define as skill. But it's actually not skill. It's for us being able to inculcate the culture that derives direct benefit between the asset and the people that should benefit from that asset. And they'll take care of it. It doesn't even require, a community can take care of a school if they understand the benefit of the school.
Okay,
they
guys.
will.